Roast it.
put the
So go ahead. Continue your thought.
should I put the comic adaptation on screen?
We can do that. That's fine. Also, hello. I pressed it too quickly. Welcome back. It's been a while. Drama, real life. But I'm here now with my buddies to talk about a fantastic EU novel by Brian Dailey with Han Solo at Star's End. And this is the EU Legends Wayback Machine because I have to piss off Brennan every episode. That's what we're discussing today. Just a novel. Crazy. Instead of a comic. Too many comics. Not enough novels. Also, already waiting was Lucas saying hello. Really sorry I missed the last one. So, okay, man. And we have Cantina Conversations. They are very small. They deserve some love. They have one video out so far. Go subscribe to them. They said that me and Brennan were like inspirations for making a channel, which really touched my heart. I'm like, what? I'm a loser. What do you mean? So, and Andrew's here as well. Welcome back. And so,
Alex, you're only a loser when you start the stream too early before Robert's ready.
yeah,
it's just a minor inconvenience.
It's okay. It's like I clicked it and I was like, oh no, because I heard him start talking. I'm like, well,
it's all right. Our viewers will forgive us this time.
They've got Nazo Servant Dog throwing the Quarian greetings at us.
So, yes.
Brian Dailey.
Specifically, this one, Han Solo at Star's End. I kept saying the whole time before the whole, like, however long it took us to do this, like the last month, I kept saying Han Solo's Revenge.
Yes.
I don't know why. It's at the top for the whole time, and I just it never clicked.
General thoughts, gentlemen.
It's good.
I
liked
it.
I liked it. I have some criticisms of it. First of all, the basic premise of the story, for me, it was way too similar to the only other EU book that we covered so far, which is Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I know there's different characters. I know there's a Force element to Splinter of the Mind's Eye that isn't in this book. But it's basically the miners of the corporate sector. So the species that come to the corporate sector in search of work. They get disgruntled with the corporate sector police, pushing them around, telling them what they can and can't do. And we find out later that they're capturing people, abducting them, and putting them into this prison known as Star's End. But it's basically this faction of disgruntled workers against the corporate sector authority, the people in charge. It's not the Empire. And Brian Dailey obviously is not around to tell us the constraints he had about writing this book, but I know James Luceno, because he was friends with Brian Dailey at the time and familiar with how Lucasfilm and Del Rey interacted, what was off limits back then. I think he's mentioned multiple times that the Empire was not allowed to be a villain in these stories, that he had to work with someone else, make a new villain. And for this book, he created the Corporate Sector Authority, which is this section of space that there's this giant corporation basically that has charter over this region and all the planets within it. It's relatively uninhabited, so they don't really have workers to work the fields. There's mining, there's agriculture, plundering natural resources from all these worlds. So they import workers from other planets and promise them riches and a good paying job, and it doesn't turn out that way, which is how they become disgruntled and kind of work against the corporate sector authority. And then meanwhile, you have other people like Han Solo who are looking to smuggle weapons to them, and that's how this book starts off, of him trying to pay off one of his debts by smuggling a bunch of weapons to one of these groups of insurgents on one of these planets. So because it's so similar to the Mimban thing, where you have it's a group of rebels that Luke and Leia meet up with, it's kind of the same similar, like Empire versus Rebellion. Here it's the insurgency versus the corporate sector authority. I think they could have been a little bit more original with that, but that's just me.
I think that's fair.
Despite that though, I really like the corporate sector as an idea, it very much, I think this would have been before. I think the board game came out prior, but it very much reminds me of cyberpunk as a genre, where it's always the corporations are now like above government. They are the ones in charge. And of course, in Star Wars, it's just a sector because right now the Empire's in charge. But it's a sector of space. It's controlled by corporations, and the police and everything are all controlled by those corporations. So I think it's a very interesting thing to kind of have a cyberpunk-like setting within Star Wars. I think that's a lot of fun, and it's different from the Empire, which I think is a nice change of pace. And also, again, as you all know, I don't really watch the new canon, but it obviously had to have some major influence because in Andor, I don't know if it's that they're in it for a long time or they just visit or whatever. I don't know the context, but there is the corporate sector in that show.
Yeah.
So and that's all Brian Dailey.
The Preox Morlana Corporation.
There you go.
If I may draw a real life comparison, I think so. What the corporate sector authority reminds me of is if the Galactic Empire, like the British Empire, the corporate sector authority are like the East India Company.
I can see that.
I could see that for sure. The other comparison that I kind of got was like the Soviet Union, because the rebels that Han meets up with, they say like an individualist like you would get run over by the corporate sector authority. Like you have to play by their rules, or else you'll get thrown in jail, you'll get captured, you'll get sent to Star's End. And one character, Reckon, kind of tries to appeal to Han using that. There was sort of like an underlying morality lesson, which I didn't quite understand, because they say the corporate sector authority is anti-individualist, and then you also have, on the other hand, there's this loan shark Han is working for, and Han himself, who's a smuggler. They're not exactly playing by moral rules either. They're kind of in it for greed and making money just as well. But yet these disgruntled workers are okay to work with Han. You know, they have no problem with doing that, but they're just against the corporate sector as a matter of principle.
I mean, I guess the same could be said about Rebel Alliance in general. I mean, because technically the Empire is the legal binding authority. I mean, we saw from episode 3, they voted for this. This is what they wanted. This is what the public chose, you know? So
it depends on the story, because I think there are some stories where there's certain personnel within the rebellion that kind of don't like working with smugglers. And there's like mention of that later in the Bantam era with Akbar, like, he doesn't like dealing with smugglers on a matter of principle, right?
I think that just depends on like the because the rebellion wasn't as well at this point. The rebellion was not organized at all. This would be what, 15 BY ish, if that, maybe a little bit further up.
It's a few years before.
It's a few years before, because it takes place during Rebel Dawn, and Rebel Dawn's like five years before, all the way up until 0. You know,
Rebel Dawn gets little summaries. It's actually books within that.
It's actually much later. It's 2 BBY.
Oh, it's 2 BBY.
Oh wow.
Okay. It's 2 years.
Okay, so at this point they are starting to get like pretty formalized, but still, there's still I still imagine there'd be a lot of rebel leaders who are some. It's a sliding scale of morality, I suppose. Still at this point,
the corporate sector authority. The thing that I really like about them is, I mean, they're a different kind of, well, like the Empire. They're also very sort of amoral, but they're in a different way. They're driven by profit above all else, and in the pursuit of that, they don't care whatsoever who they hurt or what worlds they ruin and leave permanently, destroyed and uninhabitable. Or, I mean, one of the characters in this book, her backstory involves, her colony world getting annexed by them, and her son was kidnapped and tortured by them, and now he can't speak. That's a bit horrifying.
That's pretty bad. That's
They even turn on their own. If you look at the vice president's wife at the very end, like, she'll do what she needs to do to save her skin. So they're just looking out for themselves. Kind of like Han. But Han, you can tell Brian Dailey lays the groundwork for a change of character for Han, where he starts to care about Chewbacca and other people other than himself. Later on, he ends up joining the rebellion, obviously.
Yes.
I would argue that it's more than that.
There are the seeds of that, I think, in things like his conversation with the droid whose name I can't get away with saying.
Bullocks and Blue Max. Yeah. So
there's a part. I can't.
There's a part in the story where Blue Max wants to go back to save Bullocks, who's fighting against a gladiator droid that the corporate sector sort of makes him fight at the end. So he ends up getting damaged, but repairable at the end. And it's thanks to Blue Max, who sort of convinces Han to go back for him. So that was neat.
I like Blue Max. He was fun.
I love them both.
I liked all the characters in this book. Yes. I enjoyed this. I am trying to balance on the one hand, because I think I mentioned this before. I had not read this book before. This is one of the ones that I skipped just because I didn't have it available when I was coming up on it. So I was like, I'll come back to it later. But I enjoyed it. Before we started the stream, we were kind of talking about how the our initial thoughts. I was shocked because I have read the Lando books and Splinter, and I was expecting this to feel a lot more similar to those, in that not really feeling like the Star Wars books that I am familiar with, or the Star Wars that I enjoy. Kind of a weirder, much more. That's much more for Lando than is for Splinter. But Splinter's I just don't like it.
Disconnected from the later EU.
Disconnected from Star Wars in general. I think the comparison that I made earlier was Lando feels like it's in like the droids and Ewoks continuity, like it's in that sort of vein of stories, which is not bad. It's just that is not generally what I lean for. This, however, feels like it slots in to the EU perfectly. That is probably because this is an influence on later EU rather than anything else. But
yes,
I ended up really enjoying it. It does feel like a standard Han Solo adventure. However, again, that is because this set the standard for the standard Han Solo adventure. So all of the things that I have against it, it's what is it? Seinfeld is unfunny trope. It's like, yeah, this pioneered all the things that I like. So to like look, I go, oh, it's a little tropey. Oh, it's a little bit. Oh, it has a lot of things that I've seen elsewhere. That's because this did it first. So I'm trying to keep that in mind. And with that in mind, I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yes, there are so many things in there that I had no idea they were present in the EU that early. I mean,
yeah.
Nazo Servant Arc has already brought one up, the Z-95 Headhunters. First time we ever see those, the predecessors to the X-Wing.
The IRD fighters, he mentions dreadnoughts. I don't know what type of dreadnought he's talking about, if it's the Rindelli style dreadnought or not, but he mentions Fondor for the first time.
Yes. Right.
You mentioned we were talking about it earlier. And I think just Brian Dailey's general style of writing is very good. He writes actions. He writes starfighter battles really well. That whole scene against the IRDs between the Z-95s, that was a lot of fun. And he writes the action scenes really well. And not very much prose narration. You'll see some Star Wars books later, like in the New Jedi Order, where it'll tell you about the situation in narrative form. Brian Dailey doesn't really do that at all. He explains things
through it,
through the dialogue or as the action is happening, and I appreciate that. It makes for a quicker read overall.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we were quickly mentioning Han and sowing the seeds. I would argue it does more than just sow the seeds. I think it explicitly shows in several instances that Han is very much caring, but is lying to himself that he's not and that he doesn't care when he really truly does care. And we see that through several characters.
You have to think.
It's not that he's going to start to care, it's that he does, but he's hiding from that fact of himself.
Yes. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that he doesn't want to care.
This is let me be sure about it. This is 1979. This book has to this has to give you a character arc, but it has to also set up the character arc you see in the movie.
Yeah.
This has the prequel problem of it has to balance that line between a Han Solo who does not care about people and a Han Solo that we want to read about, which is the Han Solo that does want to care about people and that we see in A New Hope. And I think it does that pretty well. I think it does pretty well. I think, if I'm going to be honest, I still think I prefer A.C. Crispin's first entry. That's one of my favorite books.
Same.
The EU.
Same.
But so much of that is built off the back of this that it does feel unfair to do that. But I still do.
I mean, I think they're very complementary. I mean, that's why the third book, Rebel Dawn, essentially just gives you quick summary. Like, she does it so perfectly that when you read Rebel Dawn, there's essentially little chapter breaks in between her actual story where she just summarizes in like a page the adventure of Brian Dailey. So you could just go like stop reading Rebel Dawn, read those 3 books, and come back, and it would feel so seamless and work so well. Because she was a big fan of those books, and I think they really worked together well to make a in terms of an origin story for Han Solo, of course, Paradise Snare is going to be the
even as just a Han Solo story. I think Paradise Snare is probably the best one. That is not the movies, right?
And I think there were a lot of circumstances that allowed for A.C. Crispin to write a better trilogy. I agree, her trilogy is much better. Brian Dailey had a lot more constraints. What was allowed and what wasn't. But however bland you want to say the story is, the writing is good, and I think it does set the stage for how later Star Wars books. I think we all agree there were some good Star Wars books that came later. They're all due to the way that the precedent was set with this trilogy. And
another thing,
go ahead, sorry.
No, you're okay. I was gonna say, with Han and A.C. Crispin and this, another thing too is because you said at the very beginning how it kind of feels very similar plot wise, structurally to Splinter of the Mind's Eye. However, everything else is so vastly different, from the way it's written to the characters to the dialogue. That all flows so well that I think it ultimately overrides the simplicity of the narrative. Like, even I would say A.C. Crispin has a better trilogy as a whole, but I don't know if I'd say that she as well, because she's writing I'd say an even better story than the movies with that trilogy. Han, I don't think in every instance in those books necessarily feels like that's something he would say. The first one, obviously, because it's an origin story, so he's not who he's meant to be yet, but he's not the Han Solo from the movies till the 3rd book. Because the first 2 books is a bunch of character development leading up to that. So there's certain parts where I don't feel like Harrison Ford would say that. There's not a moment in this entire Brian Dailey trilogy where I think anything said is not something I'd hear Harrison Ford say. So I
partially agree with that. I do think A.C. Crispin is probably the closest in terms of I can't think of a writer who got closer to like my image of Han than A.C. Crispin. Yeah. Although this is damn close. This might be, depending. I'll wait till we get through the last one. But what I have to say is this nails the characterization across the board, not just Han, which is very important, but like making me invested in like Bollocks and Blue Max, and all these new characters, and some of whom have names, all of which I can't remember. I will be honest, but they were entertaining characters in the moment. And
Pluvo 2-for-1.
Pluvo,
One of my favorite.
That's a great name.
Yes.
That's up there.
You wouldn't you wouldn't want to borrow money from someone named Pluvo 2-for-1. That's just a bad idea. It's like going to the bar with someone named Sleazebago, right?
That's a hard.
Well, since we've mentioned Bollocks and Blue Max, what do you guys feel about that droid as a concept and how they were in this book? And also, before you do that, I also want to mention at the first Legends Con, and I bring this up because it hurts my heart that we're probably never getting anything more. But when I asked Karina Benko I asked her 2 questions, which is about the origins of Anya Solo. What is she? And we're not going to get into that because it's a separate thing. But the other thing I asked her is, what is the IG-88 droid in that Legacy 2 comics? What is that? And all she said is, it's a droid that Han has met before, and it is not, obviously, R2-D2 C-3PO. So I literally can't think of any other droid that Han Solo has a big relationship with outside of these 2. So is that IG-88 droid some merger of those 2 characters? Maybe.
Well, at the end of this particular story, Bullocks gets shot through the head, so he needs a new body, basically. So Blue Max is able to save all of his critical personality and all those data files, so they can re-upload him in a new circuit, droid body. But it's possible that he's undergone several transformations, because it's mentioned he's a labor droid. He has experience in the Clone Wars, right? So he's got a lot of stories to tell. He tells jokes in the Falcon. I thought that was pretty neat. There's like a circus act where they ended up sneaking into Star's End at the very end. So a lot of personality for both the droids. Blue Max is sort of like R2-D2. Like, you can see a lot of parallels to where R2 sort of hacks into the Death Star in some of those scenes to find like Princess Leia. So Blue Max kind of does the same thing to find some of the prisoners that are held within the corporate sector authority to kind of find them to bust them out of jail. So I think there were a lot of parallels there, but I like that character as well.
I know it's actually a few years before, but Blue Max to me feels like the short round of this set of characters. I don't know why I got that impression, but I was like, this guy I kind of feel. Anyway,
it says he talks like a kid.
That's true.
Blue Max is a child, basically.
He's like a child prodigy, basically.
Yeah. I know they made a toy, or I think they made a toy of Bullocks and Blue Max. Or no, I think I might be. No, I'm thinking of IG, or what? I-5. I'm thinking of that. Never mind. Sorry.
It would be cool if they made a toy.
It would be very cool. No, I got it confused. Nope, that's a different one.
Especially with the with the yes.
That would be very sick. That does feel like, I know I just said that Lando feels like it's in the droid's continuity. That sounds like a droid's design. Like you would see that in the cartoon. Which, to be fair, they had a lot of cool droids in that cartoon. So
Andrew Helm asks, do y'all reckon Brian Dailey made him with a Texan accent? So when Reckon looks very different in the comic to how he's described in the novel. I know in the 1980s was a different period, but he's described as a black man, very, very bluntly in the novel. So I'm not sure that would fly today, but
no, probably not. But still, that's kind of noteworthy.
Well, we've been trying to find the first black character in Star Wars. I don't think it's him, but he's at least one of the first.
He's one of the first, yes.
First novel one?
Definitely the first novel one.
He dies, unfortunately, but at least his nephew lives.
He dies, but he's a very fun character while he's around, which I think is worth something.
I like that not only can he understand Shirey Wook, he can speak it.
that is cool. But no, I liked Reckon a lot. I think the strong point, as Scott was saying, the plot, a lot of the Star Wars book plots are kind of A lot of Star Wars plots are kind of but the characterization, which to me is the part that matters, was on point. It was a lot of fun. There's not a character from this book that I was like, oh, we have to hear more from this person.
This guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of those in Star Wars. What's her name from New Jedi Order? Vicky Sesh. That was one of those. I was like, I don't want to hear from her. There's don't worry. Once we get there, there's gonna be so much Vicky Sesh hate. But
and Danny Quee.
I like Danny Quee. No, you're not gonna talk shit about Danny Quee. Danny Quee was good, but Vicky Sesh was annoying.
She was.
But there's not a character like that in this book. Oh, they're all interesting. They all are good. Again, I am terrible with names. So I don't remember any of their names. I'm not gonna lie. But they are still fun.
I was going to name some of them. We have Jessa and her father Doc, who they kind of have a repair facility, but it's more like for modifying starships illegally, and they have a way to get starfighters on a waiver list, get them like fake IDs and
Starship shop.
Yeah, basically to get them around the corporate sector police who are all over the place, protecting all of these worlds. So Han kind of does some work for her in busting out some of her comrades from one of the other planets, Oron 3, which is an agricultural planet. And there's this fight scene with one of the machines that basically gets all the grain, like swipes up all the grain. I was having flashbacks to the Great Heap in the droids, because that's kind of what I pictured when it's this big industrial machine that kind of eats up some of the corporate sector police there.
Wasn't there a in one of the New Jedi Order books, I think it was Agents of Chaos 2, wasn't there like a speeder chase through like a field or something like that? I kind of remember something in that direction.
Especially if James Luceno wrote that book, because there's a lot of callbacks to Brian Dailey stuff within his books specifically. So that might have been. Lance in the chat. How you doing, Lance?
Good to see it. What are some other characters that I've forgot? Well, the what's it called? The cats. The characters that come with us. Paka is the kid.
Paka and Atwar, Madame Atwar's roving performers. So she does dances, and her cub Paka does flips, like gymnastics, basically. And he's pretty good with a blaster. Is he the one that can't talk? I think he's the one that's mute based on the corporate sector authority. They explained this. Basically, they're put him in jail and subject him to torture, like all these things. It sounds really bad. They like use a blaster bolt to like zip the flesh off every part of their body. So there's some kind of eerie, gross moments that are described here. The corporate sector authority, you would not want to be imprisoned by them at all.
Yes, there's a moment where Reckon goes, the corporate sector, they don't care if you're a child or an old man. They will do these things to you, and they won't feel bad about it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty cool. Not from a moral standpoint, obviously, but like for having like nasty, interesting villains. I think that's fun, of just having like this ruthless, like uber capitalist organization in a relatively uninhabited part of the galaxy. Another cool idea. It's just like, here's this empty space, and we basically sold it off effectively.
While I was reading this, I imagined it. I wondered if it was in wild space. I don't think it is, but I think it's nearby.
Does anyone have a map handy?
It's probably right. Unfortunately, it's not in this version. I think some of the later books have like a galaxy map, but the corporate sector is very small if you look at it in the entire galaxy map, but it's rich in resources. And I think they later mentioned it's like within Zinj's territory when the Empire kind of gets chopped into warlord factions.
I think I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have? This is jumping way ahead. Do we have like an idea of where it came from, or like did one of the separatist organizations, or was this handed off, or do we have any idea of the history?
There is a backstory where it's briefly explained. So the Empire grants the corporate sector authority a charter to exploit the resources there because apparently they don't want to deal with that, and they import all these workers there to exploit the natural resources and move them to the other parts of the galaxy. And because there's so much money involved in here, there's smugglers, there's bounty hunters. One of the other characters that we didn't mention is the vice president of the corporate sector authority's bodyguard, Yul Rashan, who's sort of I don't think he's mentioned as a Trandoshan or anything like that.
Yes.
Like his species isn't mentioned, but he's a reptile, right?
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Well, this is still 79. Do they wouldn't have those terms yet?
Probably not. I don't think the species is mentioned, but he's described as reptilian. I pictured a Trandoshan when I was reading it. And he knows of Han. Like when he finds out Han's name, he's like, yeah, I've heard that name before. And Han knows him. So there's probably a backstory there that's alluded to that we aren't specifically told about. There's also parts of the book where when Han talks about his backstory, it doesn't specifically say he worked for the Empire, that he was in the Imperial Academy, but it mentions like he was stripped of his rank, and like we're not told what rank, but eventually it turns out that he was in the service of the Empire. So I thought that was
really tasteful. I felt was like how to do the backstory, give us just that little taste, but it's enough. Yeah, just beautiful, perfect. I love that. And we've never seen that depicted, as far as I know, like in a book or anything, because that's not in A.C. Crispin's book. Seeing him stand up for Chewie. They tell us like, oh, this happened a few months ago. We don't see it happen.
Ulrashan, I was wondering about that. I checked, and apparently he was later established as a Tishar.
Okay.
Which,
because I think some of these characters show up later in the West End Games material, like all these crime lords, and
there's a source book. I should have looked. Yes. I should have looked, but I don't. I forgot about it. Lance, 19 episodes. We're still in the 70s. Think about the 2000s. Just imagine that for a brief moment. Yeah, we're gonna be there's a lot of material to cover here.
A lot. Just the EU's huge.
There's so much. The 2000s are actually kind of like daunting. But anyway.
So, Al, I think you touched on this. The scene where Atuare is talking about when her world got annexed and her husband was kidnapped and all that, and she brings up the burning, which is this
torture.
Yes, where they turn down the power on the blasters and just do exactly what it sounds like, just
burn the flesh off a person. Yeah.
Yes,
it's nasty,
in the most painful, horrible way possible, and it's just oof.
I really, really appreciate the world building in this book, because there's so little to work with from just the first movie. Like, there's a lot, but there really isn't, especially given that he had other constraints put on, like he couldn't use the Empire, so he had to design a villain from scratch. So like we get all this like this juicy like world building stuff, like the Z95s and like this method of torture and all these things, and describing hyperspace and all these different things. It's a lot of fun, even though all of us are familiar with this, because again, this is where all like a bunch of these ideas come from. They're very popular later on. It's fun to see the genesis of them, like the first iteration.
This is where the standard is set, and I think there's like the first instance of a pilot ejecting from a starfighter, so we know like that emergency eject system and how that works, and how Han can. There's one point where he picks up Jessa, and they both like fit in one of the Z-95 starships, where he like takes her off planet after she's been shot down.
I like to call it the hot seat. That's fun.
Or easy chair. I don't. There was
the
references.
Easy chair. There was another one. Yeah,
that.
There's a bunch. There's a bunch of little fun things.
Kind of bizarre, but there's like anti-grav systems and life support systems, and it talks about all that. Tractor beams, escape pods. I like how Brian Dailey also, he has a nickname for the Corporate Sector Authority Police, the ESPO or ESPOs. That's pretty neat. Sorry, what were you saying?
I love the scene. Because I'm sure this has been done since, but I haven't. At least I can't remember a time somebody being thrown out of a ship in hyperspace. That when I read that, I was like, that was fantastic. That is rough. That's like now maybe in 1979 that's not. Maybe in 1979 that's not as impressive because we don't like know about like space weirds or whatever, or like it's another dimension or all this shit. But now that we do know all that, it's like, oh, that's horrible. That's horrifying.
Yeah, that is quite horrible.
It's so much worse than being thrown out in space.
Also, on top of Han throwing somebody out an airlock in this book, we also have reconfirmation that George is wrong because he says explicitly in this book that he likes to shoot first. So.
I love that. I
love that.
It's another knock against the special edition. But going back to what Al was saying about where he ejects, is it Torm? Yeah, I think it's Torm, who is one of the double crossers. So he's an insurgent, but he's really informing the Corporate Sector Authority. He's the one that actually kills Reckon, shoots him at the Dejarik table.
Yes.
So Han, once he finds out who did that, ejects him out of the Millennium Falcon airlock while it's in hyperspace. The only other time I remember that happening is in the Black Fleet Crisis with Nil Spar at the very end. Now he's not ejected out into hyperspace just bodily. They put him into escape pod and then they eject it into hyperspace to where the escape pod basically stays in hyperspace and he just starves to death in there. But here where it's described when he's ejected from the airlock, like his atoms get torn apart basically in hyperspace and there's nothing left of him. I forget how exactly it's described, but it's pretty gruesome.
That's so cool. I love that. That's awesome.
Cantina
that might be my favorite scene in the whole book. That was so sick.
Personally, my advice, if you're gonna, I'm just gonna say because they were mentioning what. Hold on, sorry, my. All right, it was freaking out. I just want to say, if you're gonna do New Jedi Order, please, personally, in my opinion, go through all of the Bantam era. Some people are gonna tell you that you can skip stuff, and you probably can, but you will get more out of New Jedi Order if you don't. So take your time, no rush. These books will exist forever. You have plenty of time. Take your time, enjoy the journey and the destination. And I'll get back to today's program. I just want to give that advice.
No, we had this. Alex, you might have been there. I don't remember actually, but we had this conversation with somebody not like a couple weeks ago, who was planning on reading the New Jedi Order, but just like jumping right in. Do yourself the favor, read all of it. The tiny things that I skipped, I got almost pretty much everything. The only thing I skipped, the only novel that I skipped was New Rebellion, which. Because I saw that
the Barbara Hambly books
and those I forgot. I always forget about those. Even those I regret skipping. Read all of it. It's like the EU is much like comics in that the more context you build, the more you will enjoy it, or alternatively, the more you will hate it. But generally speaking, especially with the New Jedi Order, you will love it more if you have more context. So just to add on to what Alex said. Anyway,
I'm not sure if we want to go scene by scene, sort of describing the plot of the book. But just one other note that I had mentioned, when Han is sort of giving excuses as to why he's not helping the cause, why he's just out for himself. He says, "I'm not the Jedi Knights." And he also says, "I'm not the Sons of Freedom," which is in reference to the sons and daughters of freedom who fought during the Clone Wars. I think Zoz Rider Slake in, I think it's Jedi Trial, is part of that group. So there's references of organizations that Brian Dailey lays out in this book that show up later on in the EU, much later on.
That's really cool. I completely forgot about that. Well, mostly because it's Jedi Trial, but that I completely forgot about Sons and Daughters of Freedom. That is cool. This is a good one, ladies and gentlemen. This is a good one.
So I like the scene where Han is, narrowing down who the traitor is.
That's a good one.
And Packer, that's his name, right? I like the
Packer's the cub, yeah.
The red herring there, where you think, oh, maybe it's him, maybe the corporate sector authority did something to him while they had him, and that's causing him to turn on the others, and Han even says as much. And while actually knowing, no, it's you, Tom. I know it was you. And
they all fight. So
yes.
like when they find Reckon is shot at the Dejarik table, he's like shot in the back, and he's just slumped over the Dejarik table. He actually, as he's dying, he scribbles out with his finger, probably in blood or something, Star's End, and the name of the planet where Star's End is. I think it's like Nymphus 7 or something like that.
It's
Midas 7. Sorry.
Yes.
So the possibilities are Torm, which is the human, and the two feline species, so Artois and Paka, who are mother and child, and the rest, I guess, get killed on that mission. And it turns out to be Torm, and they're all suspicious of each other, like fighting each other, like grabbing each other's throat, and the cubs are like slashing, the Torm, and once Han finally figures out who he is, he tries to explain himself. Like Han's ready to kill him. And I think in the comic, this is one of the differences. Han just shoots him in the comic when he finds out he was the traitor. In the book, he's ejected out the airlock, like I said earlier. But yeah, that is a neat scene. I really like that.
That was a really good scene. Like even before we get to the cool part, which is him going out in his hyperspace. Him like begging for his life, saying, "Oh, Han, you look out for number one, right?" That was a lot of good stuff. I like that. That was
Tom is sort of, he's what Han claims to be.
Yeah, and I think that is really effective in contrasting characterization without having to go too far and like kind of undo A New Hope, like preemptively. Yeah, you see the difference. You're like, Han is not this guy. Which I like how Han says "yo." I think of like Scott Hall or something. Like, hey yo, hey yo. How did we feel about Chewbacca not being in like half of this? Because I was a little bit like,
poor Chewbacca gets captured.
Yeah,
I was like, he can go, like, what do you do with him?
Well, listen, hey, it's listen. I gotta have my Chewbacca with Han Solo. The only time it works without Chewie is Paradise Snare, but we have a discount Chewie in or whatever his name is.
Love him.
Who I like a lot. Who's a really great character. But
that is true. Chewbacca is in a lot of this, though. There's one part where he's singing at the very beginning. It describes him singing, which I've never heard in the EU other than in this book. And then it mentions when he gets captured by the corporate sector, he takes out like 3 of them. Like he's like bashing their heads together, bashing their helmets, and you would think they would just kill him. They wouldn't take him captured, captive over to Star's End. But in the end, that's what happens.
Maybe they hope to learn more about what Han and and Reckon and his group were up to.
It's actually mentioned because they're looking for Chewie once they get to Star's End. His name isn't even on the prisoner list, so they have to just look at him visually, because apparently Chewbacca didn't reveal any information, didn't reveal his name. So I thought that was pretty interesting at the end. But there's this huge fight scene when the life support system on Star's End basically goes away when they take out the power, and all the prisoners sort of riot, and there's this brutal fight scene. There's species of all different kinds that were imprisoned in Star's End, and there's one that's described as like a bird. He's like shooting them, and then like a beaked character like is laying on the ground with his like face smoldering or something. I thought that was like, whoa, that's pretty brutal there.
That's awesome.
And the fact that when they finally find Star's End, there are no cells. They're just keeping all these prisoners in stasis. So from their perspective, there's no in between. They just go from one interrogation to another, to another, to another, and that's all there is for them.
Mm-hmm. And it's mentioned as there being thousands of prisoners. So whenever they identify anybody that might be of trouble to the corporate sector authority, they're just abducted, sent to Star's End, and it's just this police facility. They're probably spying on all the various economic operations that they have on all these plants within the corporate authority. So it's definitely a police state. Definitely, like you said, Alex, at the very beginning, it's this massive like corporation that takes profit at any cost. Like they'll do anything to meet their ends.
That's something on my mind. What was it?
So we talked earlier a very tiny bit about the space battle. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? I like space battles. Of course, everybody likes space battles. I have a lot of trouble reading space battles and not having my eyes just completely glaze over.
All the troubles of reading X-Wing.
I love the X-Wing books. Michael Stackpole ones, I can't read any of the fights. My brain just shuts off. I was like, I don't know what's happening.
I look for death, and otherwise I'm ignoring it.
That does not happen with the Aaron Alston ones. Those are fine for me. I don't know what I think, because Michael Stackpole explains too much. He's always explaining things and trying to give you the exact vector of like where
like sex with aliens. He's just really in depth.
I would much rather he describe that than the space battles, because I don't understand the Z axis here. I don't know what's happening.
And the rocky outage to the Sweet Center. You understand that well.
Moving on. This one was not too bad on the scale of space battles that are incomprehensible to me, and I just skip. I don't care.
Yeah,
I was able to finish pretty easily and did not at any point like get a headache, which is not something I can say for a lot of space battles. This was not over described. This was not like trying to tell me where the fucking Z axis is or anything like that. It was pretty straightforward. Not the easiest one to follow, in my opinion, but not too bad. I don't know if you guys agree with that. I don't know what's the thoughts here.
I thought it was done really well, and I like that Brian Dailey describes the strategy of what they're trying to do, that they pair the starfighters in groups of 2, and then Han explains why he's doing that, because you're much more likely to survive with somebody that can protect you. And Han says, like, he's explaining what you shouldn't do, and not allow the enemy to get right behind your craft to where they can get, shots in where you're vulnerable. And he's sort of seeing who is available at this space dock, at this repair facility, because they have to scramble fighters and all they have is Z95 headhunters. Han mentions to Jessa, would you pull these Z95 headhunters out of a museum or something? So it goes to show you that these are not crafts that are in tip-top condition,
not
right?
top of the line machines out here.
Yeah, they just kind of have to work with what they got, and the pilots that are sent, I think there's 6 starfighters in all, and Jessa actually goes up to fly. She's sort of an old romantic interest of Han, so Han's really uneasy about her flying because he's going to have to protect her while she's up there, and all the other pilots don't really have much experience. And he's like, I'll get Chewie to fly. And she's like, no, Chewie has to fly the Falcon because it's flying in this barge that's evacuating the rest of the planet.
Well, the Falcon's in pieces at the moment.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're
I think
modifying.
she said he just wouldn't fit in a headhunter.
Yeah, they're modifying the Falcon, but they only have these 6 starfighters to fight against the Authority IRDs, which is another starfighter that's shown in the EU, not as prevalent as the Z95, but that was another interesting creation by Brian Dailey there. So I like the way it was done and how Han sort of explains the thinking. He's like training them as they're going up there, saying, be careful.
Make sure the guy you're going after is actually dead and not faking.
Right. He says, shoot them until they explode. Don't just wait till they're smoking and then they retreat. And they do lose a lot of their pilots, but in the end, they do get away. And I think Jessa, Han, and maybe one of the other starfighters escape, and that's it.
It was I enjoyed it. That was and like you said, the build up to it was the best part. It was like them explaining it, all this stuff. The actual battle, I think, like. The twins, they're like 2 brothers. They get separated there for a second. I think they both die, but that was a good sequence.
5 and 6,
yeah.
Intercept, reconnaissance, defense. That's what IRD stands for.
Interesting. There's also some terminology that they use as bandits. I don't know if that's military, spacecraft, or airplane. I don't know where they get that from, but that's interesting because they use that later in X-Wing Alliance, one of the computer game.
I should probably play those like 90s simulator games at some point. I have all of them, but I've never played any of them.
Both Z95 and IRD starfighters are both in that game. Interesting.
Very nice.
That's pretty sick, actually.
2 things near the beginning of the book that I like. First, the stuff on Darun, where Han is selling these weapons to these aliens who, and their leader talks to Han a bit and says, "We were offered jobs here and promises of a better life and all that, and we were lied to and taken advantage of, and we're treated as basically slaves here, and now we finally have a chance to fight back." And Han goes, "No, stop, I can't know all this." And he gets
angry.
Yes,
he gets angry at them because he doesn't want to be brought into their struggle,
and he knows subconsciously.
That's the second or third book, I think.
Book 2, he's in Han Solo's Revenge next up, which we'll probably do next week.
But even after that, there's a moment where we see, okay, he's not heartless. He gives them this bit of advice on, how best to conduct their guerrilla warfare and not all get slaughtered by the Authority.
I just had it and I lost it. It's him stopping himself from caring.
Yes,
basically.
Yes.
So he knows if he hears it, he's gonna get involved.
Han also mentions that it's kind of futile to fight against the Authority because they have so many starships, they have so many police officers. Like you're just never going to win. Han's okay breaking out his friends from prison, right? But he's not really into these whole ideas of like bringing down the Authority as a whole.
Not yet. The Empire is much, much bigger, and that's what he that's what he thinks about the Rebel Alliance at this point, but we know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, Pluvo 2-for-1. There's that earlier scene where Han and Chewie are at the pet shop, and I thought, okay, where is this going? And the fact that they buy this this really nasty, aggressive creature, and Han goes, okay, I need you to sedate it for a bit. I'm going to have to handle it for a moment. And then they later meet up with Pluvo 2-for-1, and Han goes, yep, I've got your credits right here. And they open the cage, and the creature just goes for him, and it's got the credit thing attached to its tail or something.
No, I think they like basically took like the credit
yes,
receipt and just stuck it on one of the spikes on its back or something like that.
Yes.
Which is very funny.
Yes.
That was a great opening.
It's the first instance of humor, and I thought it was done very well because when Han and Chewie are paying off Pluvo 2-for-1, they just do it to get him off his back. Like, I don't think Han's particularly scared of this guy. They kind of play a prank on him, and when the police sort of approach them when they're in this cantina, or I forget wherever they meet, Han's very suspicious of them that one of Pluvo's men tipped the police off there. So, he's got his blaster ready. He's like, none of you guys make any movements. And really, in essence, like, Pluvo's got leverage on Han, right? That Han owes him money, but he's just not really that scared of him. And he's probably not scared of Jabba too much. You can kind of see that in the early parts of A New Hope, where he just approaches Jabba when he's at his ship, trying to draw him out. At that particular point, he's not really threatened by him.
Yeah, and you can kind of read that in Rebel Dawn as well. I felt it was in Rebel Dawn. It did not seem like this super pressing issue.
And on Darun, they lose the dish on top of the Falcon.
That's right. I remember that.
Which
always losing that.
Is that where that came from?
Well, that would predate Return of the Jedi pretty thoroughly. So
is that just a coincidence, or?
Well, I think they sort of get in, particularly when the Falcon undergoes these repairs and modifications to get on the. There's like a list of ships that can operate within the corporate sector with illegal modifications. It's a waiver list or something. The way they describe it. I think what they're getting at is the fact that the Falcon is heavily modified. It's not stock. It's not a stock Corellian freighter. It's got all these crazy modifications, and I think that's how Brian Dailey is telling the backstory about the ship here.
Mm.
Yeah.
As for specifically the radar dish, that's one of those things where the moment you see that, it was like, I got to knock that off. I got to destroy that stuff. It's just like this perfectly shaped. Just get rid of it.
It's not aerodynamic. Yeah, you'd make the ship a whole lot faster if that was just removed.
Yeah.
What is even there? It doesn't look nice. I don't know what it does to help him.
To get DirecTV, it's like Han has cable in the Falcon.
Disney Plus.
Well, I mean, sometimes even if it looks ugly, you've just got to go with what works.
Yeah, that's fair too. Hunk of junk that he loves so much.
I remember I had a Millennium Falcon toy as a kid, and that stupid radar dish would come off so easily. Just knock it off. I was like, I think it was like a gimmick. It's like, oh, do what you did in the Return of the Jedi, but I hated it. I was like,
There were some molds of toys where the radar dish was sort of flat, so it wasn't like sticking out. It was kind of more flush against the rest of the ship, but I preferred those.
That's understandable. I hated it. I hated that stupid little radar dish every time. But yeah, in terms of like what we've seen in the expanded universe at this point so far, probably the best story, the best like piece of media that we've talked about so far that is not the movie.
What about the radio drama?
That I count that as under the movie. Anything that is A New Hope, I count as A New Hope. But in terms of an original story that we've talked about, this is probably my favorite one. This is probably the best one.
That's a good question.
Does anyone have?
I would say it's probably, this is my personal preference on the form of media, but it's probably either this or Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I'm not sure which. I think this is written better. Splinter of the Mind's Eye, although the story is very similar, maybe that's a little bit better just because I like Luke and Leia more than Han.
Yeah,
but it's a matter of preference, I think. But that's a good question. What do you guys think?
Because this is our second major novel. I think we gotta keep a tally here. Alex, what are you thinking? What are you thinking over there?
I'll start with Robert.
I agree, but
talk as much.
Yeah, but you're also comparing vastly different mediums, so I don't know if that's a fair comparison.
Well, just off of the two novels, then.
Yeah, it could be your personal preference, but what do you like the best out of all the stories we covered so far?
Okay, well, it's tricky. I generally have a difficult time picking favorite anything, but
we are putting a gun to your head now. It is time for that.
What are your favorite? What are your favorite? Tell me now.
Okay, I think I'd have to go with Han Solo at Star's End then, with the caveat that this is how I feel at this particular moment with the mood that I'm currently in.
That is fair.
It's like choosing between children. You just can't do. You may secretly have a favorite, but you don't have to say so.
I'm gonna level with you, Alex. I would not choose most of the Marvel comics. I am openly not choosing almost any of them, at least so far.
So Al, your thoughts?
Well, I would stand by this. I think this is the best. This is the best story so far. And I'm a comics person, so Scott, you mentioned that you prefer the medium of novels. I prefer the medium of comics. Even with that said, I don't really like any of the Star Wars comics. I like them okay, but I don't. Yeah. They're not like
the current none of them have Star Wars comics as of 1980.
Yes, I don't much care for this era of Star Wars comics. That said, this is probably the best story that we've done so far. I think part of that is that there's not a lot of really great competition. Like, it's between this and the Marvel comics and the newspaper strips. The other things are like the holiday special, which clearly is not. It's clearly not that. I don't think anybody here is gonna. Well, Brendan might argue that one, but
yeah, you'll be the only one.
Alex, what do you think? What's your favorite?
I think I'll agree. If we're just going off of...
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I mean, rewatching the holiday special with you lot was a fun experience, if mutually painful.
I think it's better under the influence.
It is.
Right. Yeah. It's fun to make fun of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the comics are similarly fun to make fun of. The Aduba 8, like, I think maybe one or two of those might be good. but the rest of them kind of
Everything
I
with
agree.
Baron Tag I enjoyed in the comics I've been reading so far, and when what's his name? Oh my goodness, the Cyborg Man, Valance goes up
Valance.
against Vader. All that stuff I was here for. Absolute fan. Some of the other stuff is hit or miss for me so far that we've read with the Marvel comics, but those stuff I think is generally solid, and I'm glad I read it, and I think it adds to the universe more than takes away. So
Okay, so you would say you like one of those comics better, like one of the Valance comics?
No. If we're going off of just the comics that we've read so far, the Valance stuff is my favorite, and the Baron Tag.
Do you like that better than everything else, including the 2 novels we've covered?
Because that's the question, Alex. Is like, what is your favorite thing we've done so far?
Right.
Then definitely Han Solo Star's End.
Okay.
It feels like Star Wars. Okay. It's quick. I like Han Solo, not more than Luke Skywalker, but Luke Skywalker right after episode 4 is not particularly my favorite version of Luke Skywalker. So I can't say that story was particularly super great to me. I like the connections it makes to the EU as a whole later on, like with supernatural encounters and other things. But in terms of the story itself, I think it's fine. But if I'm going to read something just for pure enjoyment, it'd probably be Han Solo at Star's End.
Okay. Yeah, so. As we finish this trilogy, I might put the Han Solo trilogy as a whole above Splinter of the Mind's Eye. But if we're just considering Han Solo at Star's End, I'd put Splinter of the Mind's Eye slightly above. So they're like 1-2 as far as what we've covered so far. But I
also love kooky side characters like I don't think the old lady from Splinter of the Mind's Eye is that fantastic, and I don't think they really have an equivalent. Han has his ex-girlfriend. There's Bollocks and Blue Max, so I think that helps add to it in terms of liking this more. And like I said, I'm biased because I particularly, at least in this time period, prefer Han as a character.
Scott, your criticism about this being kind of the same idea as Splinter of the Mind's Eye does kind of make me pull this down a little bit, just because it is. But I really do like the characterizations enough that I'm like, I would still.
That's fair.
This one.
And I think it's a close one too. It's just you add some of the other elements, like the Force elements of Splinter of the Mind's Eye. The fact that Vader shows up, you get a lightsaber fight. I just feel there's a little bit more in that other story.
Oh, for sure. I don't think any of the comics so far have really been in contention, and they will be. I will say there are comics later on that I think will be in very high contention with a lot of the novels. I think even like short ones like The Making of Baron Fell, I think is perfectly reasonable to put up against some of the best. But we are not in that area yet. We are still in sort of the goofy Silver Age, or I guess it would be late Bronze Age, but it feels close to Silver Age. And even in this era, we're not at the stuff that I like, which is Luke Skywalker Pariah or the Lumaya stuff or anything like that. So
I am quite looking forward to the David Michelini run. We've got some very nice art to look forward to.
We also have rabbits.
Yes. But that will be in October, spooky month, even though it won't be spooky stuff for discussing. But next week, which will be the final bout, like teetering on the end of September, beginning October, will be Han Solo's Revenge. So we're not done with the novels yet. We got one more to go before we go back to the dreaded millions of comics before returning to another novel.
Yeah. Well, we've gotten through a lot of the sort of black comics, that aren't very good.
Funny you should say that, Cantina Conversations. He is already. He's going to be a book narrator, so we've known this for a long time that he's got a luscious voice. And beyond supernatural encounters, I hope he does many more audiobooks and such. Like I've never read Stephen King. I've really had no motivation to read Stephen King, mostly due to the fact that my mom's a big fan, and for some reason that makes me be a big turn off that. And I know that in it, there's a particular scene with children that I don't feel like reading. I feel like I got enough from the movie that I'm good. But if I ever was going to, having Robert voice the audiobook of it would certainly make me more inclined to read it. So
I will say Stephen King, I've read a very small amount of Stephen King. I've read The Shining, I've read Salem's Lot, and I started what is that over there? Christine about the car. Salem's Lot, 10 out of 10. Love it. You should read Salem's Lot. The Shining, great. Love it. Christine, probably not going to finish it, to be completely honest.
Okay.
But that's the car being no, I don't care. Never mind. So Alex, don't read It. It's way too long and sucks.
Do you know about Dark Tower? Is that worth it?
I do know about Dark. I've never read Dark Tower, but I do know about Dark Tower.
Yeah,
read
I like fantasy.
Salem's Lot. So. Salem's Lot is really good. Anyway, that is a
off that topic.
Back to the WayBack machine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
all
thank
right,
you very much, Cantina Communications.
Yeah. But love you.
Final
all.
thoughts.
Love
Final thoughts.
Yeah.
Maybe
like
one of my favorite minor moments is when Han rescues Doc and he goes, "Okay, so you know how we're in a tower, right? Well, I may have accidentally launched said tower into space." And Doc goes, "Han, you imbecile."
That is pretty sick.
Doesn't have an escape plan. It's like him busting Princess Leia out of the Death Star prison and not having a way to escape.
That is an ongoing theme in Star Wars media. Is like, we're gonna break you out. How do you get out? Guess we'll have to figure.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Alex, there was a one of the quotes that you.
Oh yeah, I wanted to read 2 of them.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. All righty. As I live and breathe, she scoffed. Have we finally seen Han Solo do something unselfish? Are you going soft? Who knows? You may even pick up a little morality one day if you ever wake up and get wise to yourself. He stopped, his leer gone. He glared at her for a moment, then said, I already know about morality, Jess. A friend of mine made a decision once, thought he was doing the moral thing. Hell, he was, but he'd been conned. He lost his career, his girl, everything. Their friend of mine, he ended up standing there while they ripped the rank and insignia off his tunic. Sounds like he's talking about himself. The people who didn't want him put up against the wall and shot were laughing at him. A whole planet. He shipped out of there and never went back. She watched his face become ugly. Wouldn't anyone testify for your friend? Or so she said this, sorry. Wouldn't anyone testify for your friend? She asked softly. He snickered. His commanding officer committed perjury against him. There was only one witness in his defense. And who's going to believe a Wookiee? And this is another one with Bullocks and Blue Max. Chewbacca was listening intently now. He was far older than any human, and his perspective were different from a man's or a droid's. Bullock's leisurely speech made him sound serene as he replied, Obsolescence for a droid, sirs.
Obsolescence.
Much like obsolescence. My apologies. For a droid, sirs, is much like the death for a human or a Wookiee. It is the end of function, which means the end of significance. So it is to be avoided at all costs, in my opinion, Captain. After all, what value is there to existence without purpose?
Woof.
And there's the moment immediately after that where Han gets irrationally angry and he's not quite sure why.
Yeah.
Those were I really liked both those moments. The sort of hinting at the origin, like we talked about earlier. This is all retroactive, but is he then talking about Shia Bree? Not Shia Bree, Bria Theron. They're all the same. They use just like
they do all similar
names.
Obviously not when this was written.
No, but
certainly AC read this. So
yeah.
Is that what he did? I think
that
so.
does not describe the end of Paradise Snare. To be fair,
no, it does not.
But he could. I can see him like wrapping that up all together, like when they blew up Bloodhaven in Nightwing, and he's like, "Oh, everything sucks now. My girlfriend dumped me. I killed someone. They blew up my city. Like those things happened in sequence. They don't all happen at once, but like he shoves them all together.
Yeah. So I think it works for being like a quick summary where he's clearly talking about himself.
I think that's all we need. I like that. I think that's all we want. I think that is actually done better than how it's done in Hutt Gambit, where it's like retroactively telling you what happened in between books. So that is a point I can give to Brian Dailey over AC Crispin.
Because the one thing, about these books, and we'll get into it more as we go through them, but, Ryan Dailey can't, like we've discussed, he can't really progress his character because he can only progress in the movies. And this isn't an origin story. We'll get that with AC Crispin in the 90s. So she has more free reign to kind of express his character and his story more. He has this constrained limit, but within that constraints, he does something wonderful where it's basically just another adventure of Han Solo, right? This is the guy you know from the movies before he made friends with Luke and Leia. It's that guy. But within that, you get, because he can't explicitly say anything that would go against Lucasfilm's wishes, he does this subtlety thing, which I think really works for his character at this point in time with his psychological mindset to be like that. And it makes it a little bit more powerful that he doesn't just straight up tell us what happened, and then he has to beat around the bush like that to tell us what happened. Which
right,
feels like
it makes us think, right? It doesn't tell us exactly, but it gives us an idea of Han's backstory. And the part about AC Crispin, the Hutt Gambit, even AC Crispin was constrained. She couldn't write Chewbacca's like origin story exactly. They just had to kind of explain it at the beginning of the second book. So yeah. It's not really the author's fault. It's just the way George wanted these books written.
And
if you want to see that story, you can always read Solo or watch Solo.
No, I wouldn't. I've kind of come around on Solo being the worst one. I've been talked into maybe that is the worst one. It just depends on what day it is for which is the worst one, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I really liked it. I liked it way more than I thought I was going to be honest.
Now he's more excited for Revenge and Lost Legacy.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Which
I'll
is
say
the one
Lost
with
Legacy may dwell more into the Lando camp, just because of Zim the Despot.
That's what I was just about to ask. I was like, which is the one with
that
Zim
one?
the
Maybe more in that ballpark. But Han
Okay.
Solo Revenge is
a little bit. I'll take a little bit. But no, that's gonna be that's a lot of fun. I think this is the third time in a row at the end of one of these where I ask, "Are we out of the 70s?" And I'm pretty sure the answer is still no.
Are we?
Is Han Solo's Revenge still?
Han Solo's Revenge is still 1979.
Oh my goodness. Well, tune in next week for more 1979 Star Wars content.
Can't escape. That year never ends. You see, it's the Twilight Zone.
Not that it matters. It's just, we've said it so many times. At the end of like the last 3 in a row, we're like, "Oh, we're at the end of the 70s." I thought
we were at the end, but we weren't. I thought those Han Solo books were all 80s, and they're just not. I think the last one is.
Yeah, that's the last one is going to be 1980, but not this one. So.
Yeah. So
whatever.
More 70s fun, guys. Coming soon. Pretty soon. Another 10 years from now, the 70s are going to be like, what, 50 years ago? Or is it already 50 years ago? Something like that. It's coming up if it isn't already. So.
Did any of you read the? Did any of you listen to the audiobook?
I did not get a chance.
I listened to an audio like version. I don't know. I think it was like made for like vision impaired.
Okay.
I don't even know if there is an official audiobook for this one.
I don't think there is.
Well, I'm
sure there's an unofficial one.
There was an unofficial one, and that's one that I listened to, but it was really good. Read by Alec Voles, apparently. And yeah, he has a good voice. And
shout out to him.
In case it needs saying, yes, it is definitely a real human.
Yeah. Well, nowadays,
real humans are always better than non-real humans.
Yeah,
that's a whole different discussion. But what I'll also say is we completely skipped over the comic, which honestly, it wasn't. I don't think it was good. I don't think it's really that.
I just read the novel.
I read that.
Read it. It's out there.
I read that in place of the book when I did this originally because I have the newspaper strips in the Epic collection. I was like, oh, I'll read that instead, and I did not even finish it because it was bad. It was an experience. Do not do that.
I can handle the early part of the Marvel series, but I really struggle with the newspaper strips. It's so I made it a third of the way through the comic adaptation, but for me it was like a brick wall. It's
Yeah, this
Pretty dry.
story, the way the events happen in this book, it doesn't translate well to comic form at all. I don't even think Splinter of the Mind's Eye translates that well to comic form
No, it
either. My suggestion, if you want a real better experience, just read the novel.
Yeah.
No. Typically, if something is written first and foremost for a comic, that's the way it should be. It should not be. I mean, it can be adapted into film and TV, but typically, a lot of things are made in a certain way for that specific purpose. I mean, comics try to emulate movies and stuff often with some of their shots, but I still think there's a uniqueness. I'm not even the expert here. That's Al. But I think with the few comics I've read, that there's a uniqueness to a comic that is different from a film or novel. In the same way, a novel, it's about the writing. That's what's going to make it or break it for you in terms of your enjoyment of it. A story can be generic and be the same thing you've heard 100 times, but it's how it's delivered to you that's going to keep you there.
I am about to embark on a bit of an experiment. I am buying a bunch of novelizations of comics. I'm buying I know I'm completely deranged and worthless as a person. I know. I understand this. I am buying the Batman No Man's Land adaptation, the Nightfall adaptation, Death and Return of Superman, and Killing Joke, just to see what those are like. Doing the reverse of what they did with the Brian Dailey book, just to see, like, is there any value here? So I will report back when I finish any of those.
Yeah, I would like to hear your thoughts on that. But the point being is mediums are made for whatever, for that specific medium. So inherently,
and that's not even a good version of a comic. That is like you have to turn it on its side and read it that way, which is the worst thing ever.
I think I said this before I started the stream, but this book works specifically because of Brian Dailey. And regardless of his similarities to Splinter of the Mind's Eye, what makes this book be a good book, whether or not it's better than Splinter, I don't know, but it works because of Brian Dailey and how he writes this story. So this could be the same story written by like Vaughn and McIntyre, and I don't think it would work as well. But because it's Brian Dailey, it pops, it snaps, it's quick, it's good.
He has a very recognizable style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable style to read as well.
Yes.
Which
very easy to read.
Very easy
not
to read.
Too dense. Very smooth. Anybody can pick it up.
And the stuff that he introduces feels very natural to Star Wars. Is that because people liked it and included it later? Maybe, but I think that it of the thing. So this, and I can leave on this point. Of the things introduced in some of these early, adventures in the expanded universe, a lot of them are just dumb. Like a freeze ray. That's dumb. That sucks. Nobody's going to use that again because it's bad. This, it's like ship types, and he describes how they work and things of that nature. Just like relatively grounded things that you would expect from Star Wars because you see all this other stuff. Not a freeze ray or, whatever, or any of the other stupid stuff.
I like how the Empire disseminated the locations of the rebel bases through like an infectious disease where you look at some of these eyes that were infected. You're telling me like that's not a good idea? I forget what that was called, but like these comic ideas are crazy. They're insane.
And they're fun. They're like entertaining, but like they're dumb. They're real stupid.
Also,
this does not feel dumb.
Guy, hello. He literally has only shown up for my Malazan book reviews, but he's a cool guy, so I want to make sure I acknowledged him.
Yep.
So.
Thanks to everybody who showed up in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the show.
We had comments before we started this time.
We did.
That's
maybe if we do this regularly on a weekly basis, we'll get regular viewers. We'll see. We'll see.
We're trying.
Fingers crossed.
We'll get back to that at least till March, where things will be hiccuped again. But we got October, November, December, January. We got 5 months of me being consistent. So I can promise you that.
If we could work out weekly, so we can knock out some of this, like some of the harder to get through stuff, like this.
Marvel. I mean, listen, I have before. I can talk about this after. But I'm just saying, I could do more than twice a month. I'm just trying to do best by everyone else.
We'll convene about this, but
yes.
Take us out, Alex.
All right, thank you all so much for watching. Next week we should have Han Solo's Revenge, the second book by Brian Dailey. So if you enjoyed this book, you reread it with us, or you just are going off of memory, come join us as we discuss that book next time. And thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate you all. And until next time, may the Force be with you all. And live long and prosper. Ha ha ha.